could save you as much as 50% off your premiums every year for the rest of your life. 800-257-1257. Toll free. Call Garden State Life Insurance for your free information today. 257-1257.
This is CNN.
To our viewers around the world, good evening from London. I'm Jim Clancy, sitting in for Hillary Bowker.
And good afternoon from Washington. I'm Ralph Begleiter, sitting in for Frank Sesno. In the news this hour, Cairo struggles with the aftermath of an earthquake.
The earthquake devastated the poorest parts of the city. Many were lucky to escape with their lives as their substandard housing collapsed around them.
David Chater on efforts to dig out survivors still trapped in the rubble.
Also, a worker walkout in Italy. Millions of strikers crippled that country's industries. And rebuilding Iraq, Baghdad's relentless efforts to rise from the ashes of the Persian Gulf War.
Tangled concrete and steel are all that remain of high-rise apartments in Heliopolis near Cairo, Egypt, after yesterday's earthquake. And relief workers are trying to keep track of the number of people killed and injured. The International Red Cross estimates 1,000 dead, missing, or homeless, and perhaps 10,000 hurt. The Egyptian government reports just over 400 killed. The quake hit one of the world's most crowded cities, a place where population pressures have spawned hastily built apartments, which sometimes collapse even without an earthquake. ITN correspondent David Chater has more.
Somewhere above the noise of the earth movers tearing away at the debris of this block of flats, once 14 stories high, a human voice was heard today crying out from the rubble. The excavation was immediately halted. Silence was called for. Teams with listening devices located survivors crushed beneath the concrete slabs but still alive. The struggle to free them has been going on now for 3 desperate hours. The rescue teams have been working throughout the heat of the day without a break. Some are tired, some even despondent. But if they can pull just one person alive out of the rubble behind me, all their efforts will have been worth it. The earthquake devastated the poorest parts of the city. Many were lucky to escape with their lives as their substandard housing collapsed around them. This morning, people were still in a state of panic, trying to come to terms with what was happening. The worst shock waves lasted for 14 terrifying seconds. School children were trampled to death in the stampede for safety. The death toll is climbing by the hour, but the number of injured is already put at more than 4,000, many of them in a serious condition. The hospitals are so overcrowded they're having to treat some patients in the corridors. They're also running short of medical supplies. In the last few minutes, they pulled what they thought was another survivor out of the rubble, but he died just as safety was at hand. The specialized French rescue teams have now arrived on the scene. All hope has not yet gone. They hope other survivors will be found. David Chater, ITN, in Cairo.
The ancient temple of Karnak is among the casualties of the earthquake. Egypt has notified the United Nations that part of the pharaonic monument south of Cairo was damaged. The UN says it will help restore the monument, which was built between the 20th and 4th centuries BC.
Millions of striking workers in Italy shut down industries and paralyzed public transportations with a massive walkout today. Union leaders estimate 10 million strikers hit the streets to protest government spending cuts. The 4-hour strike was staggered across the country. The walkout in Milan flared into a violent confrontation. Protesters there pelted one union leader with eggs, rotten food, and fireworks. He was hit by a metal object that cut his lip. Another worker had to be carried off when fireworks exploded in his face. The protesters accused their union leaders of standing by while the government slashes social programs. They're pushing for higher taxes on the wealthy instead. Britain became an industrial powerhouse on the backs of its coal miners. But the backbone of those miners was broken when Margaret Thatcher's Conservative Party broke their strike in 1985. Now the coal industry is laying off workers by the thousands in a sweeping cutback. CNN's Rob Reynolds has that report.
30,000 miners, 3/4 of all the coal workers in Britain, will lose their jobs. The government-owned British Coal Company said 31 mines will be shut down, 12 by the end of the month. The South Yorkshire village of Stainforth has a little more time. The pit here will close in March, but the news has devastated the community.
I'm the chaplain to the pit, and I'm there about every 3 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks. The conversation really is, what else can I do if I were to leave this place?
Executives call the decision painful.
Well, there's no other way out of it. You can't keep producing coal if there's no market for it.
The crisis in the industry began in 1984 when a violent strike paralyzed the coal fields. By the time the government broke the strike a year later, power plants that ran on British coal had begun to switch to cheaper imports or cleaner natural gas. The miners' union leader called for a strike to prevent what he called the savage butchery of the coal industry.
Miners have got a choice. They either lie down and let it happen, or they stand up and fight back with the assistance of the entire labor and trade union movement.
But the company says if any miners go on strike, it won't pay layoff benefits worth a maximum of £37,000. The company promises to set up retraining workshops in coal mining towns. But with the entire British economy in deep recession, there's little chance that all of the 30,000 will find well-paying jobs.
What about the kiddies? Yeah. Them what's got family, what about them? I mean, it's them what's going to suffer, isn't it?
Many of the pits scheduled to close have sustained towns and villages for generations. But this generation of coal mining men will be the last. Rob Reynolds, CNN, London.
Coming up later in the hour, bitter discontent against Serbian rule leads to protests and violence in a new region.
Their relationship has long been uneasy, but guess who's coming to the aid of former Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev?
Yet there's little warmth for other Russians in the streets of Moscow. Winter comes early to the shivering capital.
Once in a great while, a car comes along with such timeless beauty, such intrepid performance, you can't help but make predictions. What do you do when you think something is destined to be a collector's item? You put one away for safekeeping. The new MX-6 from the new Mazda.
Mazda just feels right.
Then again, who can wait that long?
Right now, when you book a 7-day Caribbean cruise aboard Holland America Line, you'll enjoy remarkable savings. You'll visit sunny ports, dine on exquisite cuisine, take in dazzling entertainment, or do nothing at all. Come, discover a place in the Caribbean that's warmer than anywhere else. Aboard the ships of Holland America.
Who are you going to call the most this month?
My grandparents in Philippines.
My uncle, Supermaniam, who lives in Agra, India.
With Sprint's new program, The Most, you automatically save 20% off whoever you call the most each month.
I call Vim in the Netherlands.
And with The Most, you can also choose a plan that lets you save 20% on international calls.
My mom in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
My sister in Munich?
My sister in Sri Lanka.
Doesn't anyone have relatives in Buffalo anymore?
I try to ignore my sensitive teeth, but they hurt.
Sensodyne helps stop the pain that can make you stop brushing, could lead even to tooth loss. And now Sensodyne has fluoride.
Fluoride, great.
New Sensodyne helps stop the pain of sensitive teeth.
The one and only vice presidential debate of this important election year. CNN will carry it live, plus pre- and post-debate analysis, followed by a special edition of Larry King taking viewer calls for their reactions. All beginning tonight, 6:30 Eastern on CNN.
Brazilian television says a helicopter which disappeared Monday with a top politician on board has been found, and Globo TV says the politician, Ulysses Guimarães, is dead. Guimarães helped lead the fight to impeach President Ferdinand Collor de Mello. His long career as a congressman and pro-democracy campaigner in Brazil led him to be known as Mr. Democracy. Guimarães was 76.
In Colombia, another member of the Medellin cocaine cartel has surrendered, and authorities say they hope gang leader Pablo Escobar is next. Gustavo Gonzalez Flores turned himself in today, just 5 days after 3 other Escobar aides, including his brother Roberto, surrendered. Escobar is one of the world's most wanted men. He and his gang surrendered in June 1991, but last summer they broke out of prison.
The government of Venezuela now says what first appeared to be a possible threat to its president was instead a case of public drunkenness. Authorities yesterday fired on a truck that was speeding toward a crowd after a ceremony attended by President Carlos Andrés Pérez. 2 men in the truck were killed. They were later described as drunk. 11 people in the crowd were injured. It happened near Venezuela's western border with Colombia. Pérez survived a coup attempt earlier this year.
The troubles on the Balkan Peninsula have returned to Kosovo, a volatile region in Serbia populated mainly by ethnic Albanians. Serb police confronted thousands of demonstrators today outside the university in the provincial capital, Pristina. Students there are demanding Albanian language education and other academic freedoms. Police used riot batons and tear gas on the unarmed students, and Albanian officials say several people were injured. Similar protests 3 years ago led to at least 70 deaths. Because of long simmering tensions, many analysts believe Kosovo could be the Balkans' next war zone.
Here's a new twist to the story of political feuding between Boris Yeltsin and Mikhail Gorbachev. Russian President Yeltsin has intervened to allow Gorbachev to travel to Italy and Germany. Gorbachev had been prohibited from leaving the country after refusing to cooperate with the Constitutional Court. CNN's Siobhan Darrow has details.
Boris Yeltsin says it was a humanitarian gesture to let Mikhail Gorbachev go to Germany. But it's likely he was feeling some pressure from the outside world.
In the past several days, the list of countries criticizing Yeltsin's move to ground Gorbachev has been growing, to include Italy, France, and Spain, among others.
But it was Germany's decision to invite Gorbachev to the funeral of a leading German statesman that may have finally changed Yeltsin's mind.
It was better for Yeltsin to let him go rather than wait until Gorbachev gets a UN passport and leaves anyway. Secondly, there are no serious legal grounds for refusing his right to leave. Thirdly, it would be diplomatically incorrect for Yeltsin to prevent Gorbachev to attend the funeral of the former West German Chancellor.
Gorbachev, calling himself Russia's first political dissident, was barred from leaving the country after refusing to testify at court, where the Communist Party is on trial. Gorbachev has said for days now that it's not the court he objects to, but being made a political scapegoat.
I have said that I'm willing to cooperate with the chairman of the court and with the other members of the court. Let them come to me and I will talk to them. But I'm not going to appear in the witness box. This is a political fight intended to settle scores.
And as winter sets in early, settling scores is not what is on most Muscovites' minds.
It's their own personal intrigue. Yeltsin should have more important things to do.
It seems for the moment Yeltsin has decided to deal with the more pressing problems, putting on hold for now his feud with the former Soviet president. Siobhan Darrow, CNN, Moscow.
And as Siobhan noted, for the people of Moscow, this year's first taste of winter is already a bitter one. The earliest snowfall in 16 years lightly dusted Moscow overnight. And the heat hasn't even been turned on yet in many apartment buildings, despite unseasonably cool temperatures. The early snow jammed commuter traffic and has damaged some crops.
The environmental group Greenpeace is accusing Russia of state piracy. Yesterday, a Russian Coast Guard vessel forcibly towed a Greenpeace ship and its crew to Murmansk. Russia accuses Greenpeace of violating territorial waters and taking illegal water samples. Greenpeace says its crew members were inspecting an underwater Soviet dumping site for nuclear waste. A Russian court is expected to decide the ship's fate on Thursday. Still ahead, in a rare admission, Iraq offers new details about Reconstruction after the Gulf War. We'll have a report.
Also, new fighting threatens the peace in Angola. Those stories and more when the International Hour continues.
your Caribbean vacation the best it can be, book Barbados. See your travel agent or call 1-800-221-9831. Barbados, the best it can be.
Simple Green's the only cleaner we use now. I can dilute the concentrate so it's really economical. An eighth cup makes 16 ounces of all-purpose cleaner. I dilute it in a reusable spray bottle. Simple Green cleans just about everything. Full strength, it even cuts tough grease and oil stains. I like to keep things clean, but I want my kids to live in a cleaner world, too.
Simple Green keeps your world clean.
Now, new Simple Green Hand Cleaner Gel cleans just about anything dirty from your hands, with or without water.
That's life.
You guys around next week? Not me, I'm off to State College on Saturday.
You're still going? That's great.
What about your dad's surgery?
Hey, the bills and stuff.
No problem. He had some extra insurance to help pick up the bills.
Aflac Supplemental Insurance helps close the gaps in your health insurance, like deductibles and co-payments. Aflac lets life go right on, and that's the peace of mind you want. Aflac, insuring over 35 million people worldwide.
Bay's English Muffins proudly presents a symphony of flavors your family will applaud. Bay's English Muffins. They bring your favorite ingredients into perfect harmony every time. In your grocer's dairy case, Bay's.
American Chad Hall says he had no choice but to go with Iraqi authorities when they threatened him last week on the border with Kuwait. The bomb disposal expert says his captivity was a roller coaster ordeal. He talked about it with CNN military affairs correspondent Wolf Blitzer.
They took me up into another room, removed all my clothing and personal possessions, issued me a prison uniform, and then put me back down in the cell overnight. And then the next morning, they took me in and interrogated me.
That's on Friday.
Saturday.
You were Saturday. And when they were interrogating you, did they make any accusations?
The initial accusation in the interrogation that I was arrested in Iraq, and the only conflict that I had during the interrogation was to reaffirm that I felt like I was inside Kuwait and was in my rights in the work area that I was authorized to be.
Hall was taken away last Thursday by Iraqi officials while he was supervising a team getting rid of explosives. Iraq blames the incident on confusion along the unmarked frontier, but has not offered an apology.
Iraqi officials are calling their post-Gulf War reconstruction a miracle. More than a year and a half after the fighting stopped, Baghdad is revealing more details about its rebuilding efforts. CNN's Brent Sadler reports.
Iraq now affirms that the Allied bombing campaign was so successful that practically every important complex and vital river link was hit. Reconstruction has been relentless. President Saddam Hussein ordered that a new development, Souk Hamadi, must rise in the space of 4 months to house 105 families. Shifts operate around the clock, employing a workforce of up to 2,000. They say the contract is on schedule. A frenzied program of reconstruction has enabled Baghdad to literally rise from the ashes, and a policy of Iraqi self-sufficiency is deeply embedded in the government's post-war philosophy. In his first ever television interview with the West, the Minister of Industry told CNN that Iraq had returned to pre-war levels in making building materials, and electricity for industry was back to normal.
It was a big achievement, actually. Many people outside and inside Iraq consider it a miracle. I don't view it as a miracle because I've lived through it day by day and seen how it was done. It was pure hard work, ingenuity, and the highest degree of motivation of the entire workforce.
Other areas of rebirth are far less spectacular. Pharmaceutical production is less than 30% of capacity. Domestic electricity, only 20% of requirements. And production from heavy engineering said to be less than 10%. The country's war machine is having to adapt.
It is now reconverted to produce, for instance, the small arms factory is now producing sewing machines, household sewing machines and industrial sewing machines. The fuse factory for the artillery shells and aviation bomb shells is producing compressors for refrigerators and freezers, etc. Things like that. And the heavy engineering factories that produced artillery pieces contributed considerably to the needs of the spare parts for the power generation plant and the oil refineries.
Such candor is rare, and it underlines Iraq's current political viewpoint that to be outmaneuvered by Washington into providing a reason for another US-led attack and more destruction is senseless. Take this drab building outside Baghdad, for example. During the war, it was at the center of the international stage. It's Iraq's famous baby milk factory at Abu Ghraib. The debate in the first few days of the air campaign focused on what the Iraqis made here. Baby milk, or, as the Allies claimed, materials for weapons of mass destruction. In a matter of a bomb blast or two, it was pulverized into a tangle of scrap metal. 2 years later, the Iraqis have put many of the pieces back together. Inside, they're performing the Midas touch, turning scrap into functioning components. The work can only be described as ingenious. The old plant had 3 giant drying flasks. The Iraqis cannibalized one to make 2, patching up more than 1,000 shrapnel holes on the way.
We had some bright engineers who worked in the Atomic Energy Commission before. They said we could do it, just leave it to us. So we agreed with them and let them start. And they have been doing a wonderful job, I think, to do it, without importing a single piece of anything from outside.
If the minister is right, 3,000 tons of baby formula could be rolling off the production lines by the end of the year. And for the regime, the resurrection of the plant is used to illustrate that it was and never will be producing anything but baby milk. Brent Sadler, CNN, Baghdad.
People in Angola's capital, Luanda, are laying low in their homes as police and UNITA rebels resume their fighting. Angola radio reports at least 2 people have been killed. Diplomats tell Reuters that UNITA now controls large sections of Angola's central highland, where rebel leader Jonas Savimbi has widespread support. Tension has been high since elections last week. Clashes between UNITA and police began last Sunday. Savimbi has threatened to restart Angola's civil war if election results show he's lost.
A former Italian lawmaker will lead a UN observers team that will monitor a truce in Mozambique. A ceasefire is due to take effect on Thursday. Mozambique is devastated after 16 years of civil war. The ceasefire marks the start of a process leading to multi-party elections within a year. The government and Renamo rebels signed a peace agreement this month. UN observers will monitor the truce and the disbanding of rival armies, oversee elections, and coordinate relief efforts. Efforts to save hundreds of thousands of starving Somalians were put into jeopardy today. Gunmen loyal to the country's ousted president took the southern town of Bardera, trapping relief workers, feeding some 200,000 people. Up to 1 million Somalis face starvation in the wake of almost 2 years of inter-clan warfare. The UN Special Envoy for Somalia said today most warlords have agreed to take part in a peace conference to be held probably in December. And still to come, will there be a new political life for one of Japan's leading but scandal-plagued politicians? We'll tell you about it.
And we'll take you to a chess match in Thailand, where a contest between sharp minds can take on the appearance of a Western sporting event.
I was going over my bank statement, and I saw that my rates had never been so low. This is all I'm earning?
Common sense says you can't always depend on yesterday's solutions.
I gotta be kidding.
Fidelity Investments, America's largest mutual fund company, has the income opportunities you may want.
So we're talking investments.
The interest rates I used to get, they're just not there anymore.
Wondering how safe this one or that one is.
But now you want something solid. Who knows? There's got to be something out there.
Sometimes the answer's a lot closer than you think.
Fidelity offers you high current yields with the credit safety of U.S. government securities, higher than you may be earning in the bank, with no sales charge. That's why over 2 million people trust Fidelity to help their money earn more. So call Fidelity now for this free booklet, a common sense guide to investing for income. You'll also receive everything you need to start. Call Fidelity now at 1-800-237-4400. Fidelity Investments. Common sense. Uncommon results.
I shampoo for dandruff, but my scalp still itches.
Now there's Scalpicin for deep scalp itch, not ordinary dandruff. It's clear liquid, not shampoo. With itch medicine doctors chose over these dandruff shampoo formulas.
The itch is gone.
Scalpicin. In order to eliminate the national debt, every family in the United States would have to write a check for $52,000. Let's hope one of the three candidates has a better solution for all our sakes. Promises, Promises, the candidates and the economy. A special report tonight, 10 Eastern on CNN.
In China, the Communist Party's talk of a free market is tempered by talk of refusing to allow political reforms. The first party Congress since the Tiananmen Square uprising today heard army delegates declare their support for the economic reform plan. But Reuters reports a Chinese government document calls for careful surveillance of universities and factories for signs of discontent. China's government newspapers claim the opening of the People's Congress is responsible for sharp trading gains on the Shanghai stock market. But the government did not take note of a flat day on the Shenzhen market.
Japan's political kingmaker was on the verge of resigning from parliament today in the wake of a major scandal. Shin Kanomaro symbolizes the ruling Liberal Democratic Party. There has been a public outcry for his resignation because of a scandal involving the mob and illegal campaign donations. CNN's Eileen O'Connor reports from Tokyo.
The most powerful men in the ruling Liberal Democratic Party hurried to the house of Japan's political kingmaker, Shin Kanomaro, to prevent his resignation from the party and from government. After admitting accepting some $4 million in illegal political donations, Kanomaro has said he should resign from the party. Yet the party insists that is not necessary.
The longer Kanomaro can hold on by not resigning, the longer he can shield off prosecutors from investigating as to who actually are the other recipients of the political bribe.
And what does that mean for political reform?
Basically what this means is that the longer you can keep Kanomaro in and have Kanomaro as a scapegoat, the longer you can avoid talking about political reform.
Kiichi Miyazawa does seem to be in a no-win situation, finally having to address the issue at political rallies. The Japanese Prime Minister continues to sidestep calls for Kanemaro's resignation.
Prime Minister Miyazawa obviously cannot criticize Kanemaro since he was the one who made him Prime Minister.
It is discussed with that kind of system that is forcing young parliamentarians here to break with the party line for the first time and to join in the public calls for Kanemaro to resign.
These recent developments may be more symbolic than anything else. Shin Kanemaro's power base wasn't built overnight, and for the man always considered the shadow shogun, it'll be easy to step out of the limelight and back into those shadows. Eileen O'Connor, CNN, Tokyo.
Coming up on CNN World Report, civil war threatens to engulf Angola for a second time unless diplomats can calm angry rebel leader Jonas Savimbi, who rejects recent election results.
And two NATO allies squabble over the fate of a group of Iraqi refugees. Those stories and more ahead on CNN World Report.
Oh, here are all the graduations. There's your sister in college.
Oh, yeah.
And there's Michael.
Hey, that's me in grammar school. Mom, how did you and Dad do it? I mean, you put 4 kids through college.
Your dad and I did a smart thing a long time ago.
Since 1928, families have invested with Scudder, America's first family of no-load funds.
Here's an opportunity to receive a free copy of William F. Buckley's controversial essay, In Search of Anti-Semitism.
I want to share something with you that's very important and especially enjoyable to me. It's Bill Buckley's National Review. When you get National Review, you'll find it's informative, probing, challenging, and very entertaining. It's not on many newsstands, so this may be your only chance to get a trial subscription.
For a trial subscription to National Review, call 1-800-257-1257.
International Hour continues, followed by Early Prime after this local commercial break. Next on CNN.
The punishing force of economic turbulence has taken its toll on insurance companies. Some have not survived. But we've come through financially stronger, more resilient, helping millions of families throughout the heartland of America do the same. For life, home, and car insurance, for family financial security, we're proud to be your shield of shelter. Shelter Insurance will always be there for you.
Got a second? Let's talk about my Chevy Lumina. No, I'm not a famous actress. I'm just an average Iowan like you. So you can relate when I say safety is important, especially when the kids are along. Lumina's anti-lock brakes really convinced us. They say you can't put a price on the important things like safety. Believe me, this little number is worth it.
The Chevy Sticker Police are on patrol. That means Lumina's sticker price is unchanged from last year. See your Central Iowa Chevy Geo dealer today.
This is CNN.
Checking the stories making headlines around the world, one day after the devastating earthquake in Egypt, there still are signs of life beneath the rubble. Rescuers are digging to reach the faint voices of survivors trapped in the debris. The death toll now stands at more than 400. One expert blames shoddy reconstruction for the huge number of casualties. Italian union leaders say 10 million strikers answered a worker walkout called for today. The strike shut down industries and crippled the country's public transportation. The strikers are protesting drastic budget cuts and tax increases planned by the government. 30,000 coal miners in Britain will soon be out of a job. The British coal industry is shutting down 31 mines over the next 5 months and laying off nearly 3/4 of all of the country's coal miners. The miners' militant union leader is calling for a strike to prevent what he calls the savage butchery of the coal industry. Industry officials say reduced demand for coal makes the sweeping cutbacks necessary.
Now time for an up-to-the-minute check on the latest financial news. CNN's Beverly Shook joins us now from the business news desk.
Thanks, Ralph. The blue chips have eased a bit from a 37-point run-up, but investors remain bullish amid strong corporate earnings reports and the possibility of lower interest rates. The Dow Jones Industrial Average now up 27.5 points at 3201. New York Stock Exchange volume is heavy, 169 million shares. The other key indices are all posting solid gains. The NASDAQ index up 2 points. Among the biggest movers on Wall Street, Merrill Lynch climbing 3 3/4 points. The nation's largest brokerage reporting third-quarter profits a strong 44% higher. Airline stocks getting a lift today. Major carriers plan to raise airfares by about 5% beginning Thursday. The parent of United Airlines soaring 2 3/4 points, and the parent of American Airlines gaining 2 points. Apple Computer adding 1 3/4 on positive analyst comments, but Sierra Semiconductor tumbling 2 points. The integrated circuit supplier's earnings fell 49%. It was an upbeat day on 2 of the world's major stock markets. In London, shares rallied late in the session after Abbey National Bank cut some mortgage rates. The Financial Times 100 index rose 27.5 points to close at 2584. And in Tokyo overnight, stocks climbed for the second straight session. The Nikkei average added 188 points to finish at 17,490. Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan met today with Japan's finance minister and the governor of the Bank of Japan. The topic of the 2 meetings, monetary policy and world financial markets. Details of the discussions are not available, but Greenspan's 4-day trip to Tokyo has raised speculation that U.S. interest rates and Japanese interest rates may be working toward a coordinated cut. And talk of lower interest rates hurt the dollar yesterday, but today it is mixed. It is up a half a yen against the Japanese currency, down a fraction against the German mark, and down 1.5 cents against the British pound. And the U.S. Treasury bond price is slightly lower. The Treasury's bellwether 30-year bond down 4/32 in price. That yield is up to 7.52%. And that's the latest in business news. For a complete wrap-up of the day's markets, watch Moneyline tonight with Lou Dobbs. That's at a special time ahead of the vice presidential debates at 6 p.m. Eastern. We will be back with closing numbers in 1 hour. I'm Beverly Shook at the CNN Business News Desk in New York.
Welcome to Hotel Views, business clubs, Holiday Inn or Ramada. Bob?
Susan, you boardroom bow wow. Holiday Inn has a business club. It's got bonus points, your gifts, everything. Wake up, Susan. Smell the coffee.
I smell something, Bob, and it's not French roast. Look, Ramada's business card program has all that and more. At Ramada, you can earn bonus points faster toward over 10,000 gifts. Plus, your spouse stays free. Tell us, Bob, when did your brain check out? Face it, Ramada's in, holidays out.
You know where I'm going tomorrow?
Where?
I'm flying all the way to Asia.
Can our plane fly there?
Well, maybe if you throw it real hard, it just might.
When you have business on the other side of the world, choose the airline that just cut up to 3 hours off your travel time to cities throughout Asia. With service to more Asian cities than any other U.S. airline, Northwest Airlines, the leading airline to Asia. Some people just know how to fly.
Hey, Dad, that's Mackerel Cove.
Yep.
I haven't thought of that place in years.
Well, we have. Your mom and I are going to build a summer house there.
Well, you'd save all year just to go there for a week. And now you're going to build a house there?
Well, the truth is, we started building it a long time ago.
Since 1928, families have invested with Scudder, America's first family of no-load funds.
Tonight, the vice presidential candidates are debating. Join me and my special guests at 9 o'clock Eastern when we analyze the debate and get your response by phone. Top experts, Larry King Live on CNN.
And this just in, one of the men injured in Monday's pub bombing in London has died. The outlawed Irish Republican Army has claimed responsibility for the lunch hour blast, the 8th such attack on so-called soft targets in the past week. The victim was the first fatality in this most recent bombing wave. The IRA vows to keep up the attacks.
Gary Becker of the University of Chicago got an early morning wake-up call today, but he wasn't bugged by it a bit. The caller told Becker he's won this year's Nobel Prize for economics. The University of Chicago professor analyzes connections between economic decisions and human behavior, such as racism. Becker says it's taking him some time to calculate what his Nobel Peace Prize means.
Well, my wife came rushing in with the news. They're on the phone from Sweden. I said, well, I'm tired now, but I'm not too tired to get that phone call, which I was surprised at and pleased to get, and received official word. And since then, I've really been answering questions from the media and trying to get myself a little bit together and let the news sink in on me that I actually did win the prize this year.
It was the Nobel Economics Prize. Becker's theories incorporate sociology and criminology and their influence on economics. The Nobel Selection Committee says his work makes economists take a broader view of things. By the way, this is the third year in a row professors from the University of Chicago have won the Nobel Prize.
Well, chess is a game to challenge the best minds, but in Thailand, chess is more than a game and more than a sport. As CNN's Tom Mintier shows us, it's a national obsession.
It looks like a sporting event. There are spectators, banners, a souvenir stand, even a soft drink vendor for thirsty fans. Inside the arena, there is no cheering. It disturbs the contestants. This is Thai chess, a localized version of the international game.
It is played with all the intensity of medieval warfare, the game it is based upon. While it may not have the tourist appeal of Thai boxing or a national team like soccer, chess is the #3 spectator sport here in Thailand. Sitting in the middle of a huge sports arena, these two men are battling for the national championship. Each game takes about 3 hours to play. Sitting at a table under a single fluorescent light, complex strategy is mapped out in the mind. This match didn't receive the publicity or have the prize money of the recent Fischer-Spassky event. The winner here also won't be a millionaire. Top prize is just under the equivalent of $2,000 US. In Thai chess, there is no queen, no bishop. The pieces move at a slower pace and the pawn is never upgraded to the status of a queen. This match is a battle between the old master and the young challenger. They have nicknames to match. The challenger has been dubbed the Golden Boy. The master's friends call him the Fat. But the youngster sitting across from the 5-time champion fears little. I think I have to be the best, he says, or I cannot be champion. I don't think I'm better than him, but I have to think he is not better than me. Watching a chess tournament is not easy. Sitting in the top row of the stadium, you can't see the intensity in the faces. You only see the pieces move on a huge magnetic board. But these are players who come to watch. They wonder if they'll ever have the chance to be the ones in the spotlight. Watching Thai chess takes stamina. The championship lasted a total of 9 hours. The old master was dethroned. The youngster known as the Golden Boy won in 3 games. Tom Intier, CNN, Bangkok.
And that's it for this edition of the International Hour. I'm Jim Clancy in London.
And I'm Ralph Begleiter in Washington. Tomorrow, we'll have a report on how a new Russia is confronting an old problem, racism. That's tomorrow on the International Hour. Now, here's Ralph Wenge with CNN World Report. Ralph?
Optimism in Angola after the country's first democratic elections now gives way to fear. Fear that the country could once again erupt into civil war unless an angry rebel leader is appeased. That story and a lot more just ahead on CNN World Report.
Hot coffee and steak in front of strangers at 30,000 feet? Not till I switched. Now I fix it and forget it.
That's good. When people are watching you this closely, you just can't be worried about your dentures. That's why I Fixident and forget it.
Fixident holds stronger than any other adhesive. It even stands up to the hottest liquids.
Fixed it, Grandpa.
He never would have tried this with his old adhesive.
For the strongest hold you can get, Fixident and forget it.
Who are you going to call the most this month?
My grandparents in Philippines.
My uncle, Supermaniam, who lives in Agra, India.
With Sprint's new program, The Most, you automatically save 20% off whoever you call the most each month.
I call them in the Netherlands.
And with The Most, you can also choose a plan that lets you save 20% on international calls.
Mom in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
My sister in Munich?
My sister in Sri Lanka.
Doesn't anyone have relatives in Buffalo anymore?
When important people have something to say, they say it on CNN. When today's newsmakers have a story to tell, they tell it on CNN. When world leaders have a point to make, they make it on CNN. Get in touch with the people shaping the news. Watch Evans and Novak.
I don't think we'd end up in a civil war. I think
Newsmaker Saturday.
Choice. It was a tough choice. I chose the Indiana National Guard.
Newsmaker Sunday. Every weekend when important people have something to say, they say it on CNN.
Hurry up! We're gonna be late. Buckle up.
Your family's safety always comes first, but sometimes it's the little things that get overlooked, like worn-out windshield wiper blades. That's why you should look for Trico wiper blades. Easy to install and aerodynamically designed to improve your driving vision, because there are a lot of little reasons to ask for Trico wiper blades today.
And welcome to CNN World Report, where we bring you the news as reported by the world's broadcasters from their perspective. I'm Ralph Wenge. Renewed fighting in Angola today, at least 2 deaths reported, and there are fears now that violence is going to increase, and civil war could erupt once again. South African Foreign Minister Begleiter spent the day in Angola trying to defuse the crisis. He met with rebel leader Jonas Savimbi, who has threatened to renew his guerrilla war against the government. Savimbi's group, UNITA, contends that the polls were rigged in recent elections, and he has demanded an investigation. The United States says it will urge Savimbi to accept the election results if the United Nations certifies them as fair. Meanwhile, diplomats in Angola describe the situation as extremely tense. We have reports now from Angola and Portugal on the events leading up to this precarious point in Angola's history. Angola's TPA has our first report.
According to several hundreds of international observers, including representatives from United Nations and United States, the carrying out of the elections was considered a success, being just, calm and orderly, and with a very high percentage of participation by the 4,800,000 registered voters. Ominously though, when votes were counted and the trend indicated strongly that José Eduardo dos Santos and MPLA were about to win the elections, suddenly on Saturday, October 3, Mr. Jonas Savimbi made a speech and threatened that he and UNITA would go back to war if José Eduardo dos Santos and MPLA were officially declared winners of the elections, claiming that elections were fraudulent and therefore not valid. This, of course, stirred up a storm both in Angola and internationally, and strong initiatives have been taken both by the United Nations Security Council and United States government to convince Mr. Jonas Savimbi that the verdict of the Angolan citizens must be accepted as part of normal democratic rule. Still, the Angolan people and the international community is on Saturday, October 10th, in the expectative of what will be the outcome of the crisis and the Angolan elections. This is TPA Angola for CNN World Report News.
The problems began to arise once the voting stations closed and the count began. Power failures, lack of communications, an intricate verification system, among others, contributed to delays, with results being announced at a snail's pace. Tensions rose. The final results came out only 10 days after voting day. José Eduardo dos Santos and the MPLA were ahead from the start, but Jonas Savimbi and UNITA began to erode his lead as more distant results came in. UNITA calculated that it would win the election and cried fraud when it became clear that the MPLA was the outright winner. Jonas Savimbi threatened a return to war, and his generals announced a withdrawal from the new Joint Military Command. The National Election Council tried to soothe the frayed nerves by announcing an investigation into the voting process. The international community also stepped in to try and persuade Dr. Savimbi to rethink his position, but by then he had gone into hiding. As the last votes were being counted, José Eduardo dos Santos went on state television to announce his victory and sent a message offering to meet Dr. Savimbi to discuss the future. UNITA remained firm in its accusations of fraud. Peace marches, behind-the-scenes diplomatic activity have so far not changed their position. It is a delicate time for Angola. If the crisis deepens, there is a danger that the difficult road to democracy will once again be diverted by war. Godofredo Guedes, RTP Portugal, for CNN World Report.
And still to come on CNN World Report, they came ashore hoping to find a new home, but this group of Iraqi refugees hasn't been welcomed with open arms. We'll have that story and more when CNN World Report returns. Right now, let's look at some temperatures in selected cities around the world.
I was going over my bank statement, and I saw that my rates had never been so low. This is all I'm earning?
Common sense says you can't always depend on yesterday's solutions.
You've got to be kidding.
Fidelity Investments, America's largest mutual fund company, has the income opportunities you may want.
So we're talking investments.
The interest rates I used to get, they're just not there anymore.
Wondering how safe this one or that one is.
But now you want something solid. Who knows? There's got to be something out there.
Sometimes the answer's a lot closer than you think.
Fidelity offers you high current yields with the credit safety of U.S. government securities, higher than you may be earning in the bank, with no sales charge. That's why over 2 million people trust Fidelity to help their money earn more. So call Fidelity now for this free booklet, a common sense guide to investing for income. You'll also receive everything you need to start. Call Fidelity now at 1-800-237-4400. Fidelity Investments. Common sense. Uncommon results.
Tears of pain. Tears of joy.
But when your eyes are dry, soothe them with the tears of Murine. Closer to your own tears than other leading eye drops or artificial tears. Murine, natural tears formula.
Tonight, CNN presents an evening of special election programming. At 6:30 Eastern, Bernard Shaw and Catherine Pryor anchor a 30-minute look at the upcoming debate. At 7, Dan Quayle, Al Gore, and James Stockdale meet for the vice presidential debate live from Atlanta. At 8:30, CNN returns with analysis of the candidates' performance. And at 9 p.m., a special edition of Larry King Live. King takes your calls and listens to viewer reaction to the debate. All beginning at 6:30 Eastern tonight, only on CNN.
NATO allies Greece and Turkey plan to hold talks on what to do with a group of Iraqi refugees who arrived by ship last week. Neither country will accept the refugees, whose ship is now stranded in waters between the two countries. Thousands of Iraqis and Kurds have already fled to Greece and Turkey this year. And as Greece's Antenna TV reports, both countries claim they can't afford any more refugees.
68 illegal immigrants from Iraq are stranded aboard a Greek boat off the coast of Kalymnos. They are waiting for the governments of Greece and Turkey to decide their fate. Neither country wants to accept them. 5 women and 4 children who became ill were moved to a hospital on the island of Kos.
Negotiations is one thing, compassion is another.
My sister here in Greek with husband from Greek. Only like that. I need to stay here with my sister, with my family and my daughter.
The original group of 77 Iraqis arrived from Turkey on October 3rd to a nearby island of Kos. The Coast Guard intercepted their boat, but after a 13-hour wait, authorities relented and let them disembark. The presence of 20 children and 2 pregnant women among the boat people melted away thoughts of rejection. The refugees said that they are Christian and fled poverty and persecution in their country.
أنا عسكري. He's military. أنا رجعت للعراق. If I go back to Iraq. بالعراق صدام يقتلني. The government will take my neck. Will hang me.
بالنسبة لي أنا أقتل نفسي ما أرجع. لأن أموت.
I will kill myself instead of going back to any Muslim country.
On October 7th, the Greek government decided to send the refugees back to Turkey. It's the first time Greece attempted such an expulsion. The boat, chartered by the Greek government, sailed to the Turkish port of Bodrum, but authorities there did not allow the refugees to go on shore. The Greek boat left Bodrum after locals cut the ropes that kept the vessel anchored. Turkish slave traders often smuggle Iraqi refugees into Greece. They put them on a boat and sometimes leave them unaccompanied to reach a Greek island coast. Their fee, up to $1,500 per head. Last September, the odyssey of another group of Iraqi boat people ended when their boat sank, drowning 29 people. Only 1 survived. Greece, overwhelmed by some 150,000 illegal Albanian refugees, cannot afford more. Refugees struggling for survival ignore such restrictions.
We go from our country because we are scared of everything. Even our children, they are crying because of 1 egg.
From Antenna TV in Athens, Greece, this is Tom Alexopoulos for the CNN World Report.
Abu Dhabi played host to officials from around the world recently for an international conference on drugs. Law enforcement agencies such as Interpol were also on hand to discuss ways to coordinate efforts to nab drug traffickers. And as Abu Dhabi's UAE TV reports, the conference was the biggest gathering on drugs to be held in the Middle East.
Officials from 30 countries and 10 international organizations gathered in the United Arab Emirates capital of Abu Dhabi last week to discuss progress and to exchange information in the fight against the drugs trade. The conference was jointly organized by the Emirates Ministry of Interior and the French government, and came as UAE officials announced that local penalties against drug dealers were to be stepped up, with the introduction of the death penalty and laws on the seizure of drug-tainted money. The conference was inaugurated by Emirates Interior Minister Under Secretary Saika Gobash and French Ambassador Bernard Paletti. One key feature was the presentation of reports on the fight against drugs in each country taking part, exchanging information and experiences that can help everyone in the drive to stamp out this evil trade.
It is our firm belief that the war on drugs will be won by the family.
That Nigeria has been
invited to present its case or stand on drug problems.
For the UAE, drugs is a growing problem. Not so much internally, but because drug traffickers are using the Emirates as a transit point on their way from Asia to Africa and Europe. Local officials announced the seizure of several $1 million worth of drugs destined for Nigeria in just one raid that took place during the conference. The drug problem is an epidemic threatening the whole world, Abu Dhabi Police Chief Tani Obaid al-Rumaythi told delegates in his closing remarks. But we are confident in our ability to confront the danger and the drugs gangs. Law enforcement agencies, governments and people everywhere will be hoping that the Abu Dhabi conference will help to stop the drugs gangs in their tracks. This is Peter Hellier of United Arab Emirates Television from Abu Dhabi for the CNN World Report.
To protect their health, people with diabetes have to always work to control their blood sugar levels. It's a task not always easy, and in today's Health and Medicine Report, Singapore's SBC looks at one woman who is successful in the battle with diabetes and also her work to help others.
Julie has been a diabetic for 10 years. Her body was unable to produce the insulin needed to convert sugars. She injects herself with insulin 3 times a day, and it's something she has to do for the rest of her life. But it hasn't stopped her from helping others. The mother of 3 runs a support group for diabetics.
One of the more interesting things that we did was to have a Chinese dinner out by ourselves, with the spouses even, at some nice Chinese restaurant. We picked the menu for the evening, and we tested our blood sugars before and after the dinner just to see how we fared. And that right then and there, in the midst of a Chinese restaurant, it's rather new for some of us, but it was one of those things that you as a diabetic must learn to live with. Sugar control and learning not to fight shy of doing these things in public.
Recent projections showed that 250,000 people will suffer from diabetes, and Julie wants to see more done to help these people. The first step is to help them find out if they have diabetes. A diabetes checkout card will be given to every household. It's a questionnaire describing the common symptoms. For a start, it will be given out to 8,000 households in Marine Parade by the grassroots bodies. The community organizations are also persuading hawkers to cut down on sugar. One who has been won over is Mr. Tay Yam Cheong. His cake shop has cut down on sugar by at least a third. And it's something the grassroots bodies expected.
Singapore's SBC filed that last report. Coming up tomorrow on CNN World Report, our Money and Market segment, we'll be traveling to a racetrack in Lebanon where locals look for Lady Luck to help them pick a winner. That's it for today's edition of CNN World Report. I'm Ralph Wenge. Now here are Lou Waters and Cheryl Atkinson with a look at what's coming up next.
Ralph, coming up, they could be interesting, but are they crucial? We'll look at what we can expect from tonight's vice presidential debate.
More than fine.
Also, a mother and father refuse to take their adopted children back, and the kids say it's fine with them.
And another change in airfares coming later this week.
I'm Lou Waters, also ahead on Early Prime, a unique story about a very experienced college football coach.
Stay with us next.
Coming up, Early Prime, followed by Inside Politics 92, after a word from your local cable systems here on CNN.
Another new car? Why'd you get tired of the old color? No, we get a new car every 2 years. How do you do that? Oh, it's simple. We lease from our Ford dealer. Isn't that expensive? You get a lot more car for your money when you lease. I got this new Taurus with a great stereo, power, everything, even dual airbags for a lot less than you'd think.
For a limited time, you can get special lease rates on Taurus, so see your Ford dealer today.
So thanks to our Ford dealer, we get a new car every 2 years. In 2 years, I'm lucky to get new windshield wipers.
AE presents colors, the colors of flavor. AE colors are healthy and good. Yeah, Some of nature's best colors bring out the best flavor in AE low-fat yogurt. No preservatives, nothing artificial added. All natural is all you get in every delicious bite. Nobody colors flavors like AE.
It was a dinner unlike any dinner ever held before.
I once caddied for the National Amateur.
27 different religious groups.
Where does it begin? Where does it begin, the whole concept of peace?
Joining together to celebrate the success of their TV channel. That the channel lasted even a day surprised many.
Now stop me if you've heard this one, if it responds to any Jewish law.
But with a little faith and some financial help from TCI,
I heard it.
Vision is now catching on.
Let me tell you the punchline. Let me tell you the punchline. Wait, let's start.
Football fans, kick off your Sundays with non-stop gridiron action on TCI Cablevision. First, tune to ESPN for the award-winning NFL Game Day. Chris Berman and Tom Jackson provide strategies, analysis, interviews, and predictions regarding the day's matchups. Sundays, beginning at 11 a.m., 9 Pacific. Then, tune to TNT for bone-cracking, helmet-smashing NFL games. Rock'em Sock'em Pro Pigskin action, Sundays on TNT, ESPN, and TCI Cablevision.